I allowed my boyfriend to punish my son, ignored him, and didn't believe the school's warnings about his health. Now, my son is in the hospital coughing blood. Still, I believed my boyfriend and sent my son away after allowing him to abuse my son one last time. Now, I'm regretting my actions. I, 36F, have a 14-year-old son, Ethan. I've had full custody of him since he was about 7. His dad was in and out of his life until he stopped showing up completely 3 years ago. I've tried to give Ethan a stable home, but I'll be honest, I work a lot and I'm not always as present as I probably should be. I lie with my boyfriend Mike, 38M. We've been together for almost 4 years. Ethan and Mike have always clashed. Mike says Ethan is too soft and acts like a victim whenever he's disciplined. Ethan shuts down a lot, goes quiet, doesn't argue, and just disappears into himself. I used to think that was normal teenage stuff, but lately I'm starting to question things. Mike is more involved in the day-to-day at home because I work long hours and often get home late. Ethan's school is on Mike's way to work, so he usually drops him off. I handle most dinners, bills, appointments, etc., but Mike is the one around more during the week. We've had incidents where Mike grounded Ethan for not doing his chores right or talking back. Once he took Ethan's phone for a week because he said he rolled his eyes when told to do the dishes. Ethan didn't say a word about it, just took it. When I asked Ethan about it later, he just said, "It's fine." That broke me a little. But again, I thought he was just being dramatic. Last week, I took Ethan to school myself because Mike had an early shift. He seemed fine, tired, maybe, but nothing out of the ordinary. I dropped him off and headed to work. Around 10:30, I got a call from the school saying Ethan was in the nurse's office and they needed me to come in. I assumed it was something minor, like a stomach bug. But when I got there, I was taken to a meeting with his teacher and Miss Thompson, the school nurse, and the vice principal. They told me Ethan had come to his teacher that morning and said he'd been feeling weird for a while. Things like night sweats, exhaustion, memory lapses, trouble concentrating, and general fatigue. I was confused. Ethan never mentioned anything like that at home. I told him he seemed perfectly fine to me and that maybe he was exaggerating or trying to skip a test. As Thompson pushed back, saying Ethan hadn't seemed like he was trying to get out of work, more like he didn't understand what was happening to him and was scared. That kind of annoyed me. I told them he was totally fine at home and probably just didn't want to be in school that day. They started talking about hidden symptoms and how teenagers sometimes mask things, even from parents. I cut them off and said, "Look, I lie with the kid. If he were sick or off, I'd noticed he's not." As Thompson said that if Ethan was saying these things, they had to take it seriously. And they strongly advised I take him in for testing, blood work, a physical, something. I said I wasn't going to drag him to a doctor when there's no proof anything's wrong. If I ran to a clinic every time a teenager said they were tired, I'd be bankrupt. The nurse tried to stay neutral, but the VP hinted that if I refused to cooperate, they'd involve the school counselor and possibly escalate it. That pissed me off. I told them I'm his mother and I know him better than any of them. Just because he opened up to a teacher doesn't mean they suddenly know what's best. They backed off eventually, but made it clear they were documenting everything. I left with Ethan, who hadn't said a word since I got there. The ride home was awkward. I asked him if he was really feeling sick or if he just didn't want to be in class. He didn't answer. I asked again, more annoyed this time, and he finally said, "It doesn't matter. No one believes me anyway." That really set me off. I said, "Don't start with that. If you're sick, you tell me. You don't go to your teacher like I'm not even around." He stared out the window and didn't respond again. This is something he does, often goes mute whenever he's upset or after he's been punished by Mike. It's like he disappears into himself. I used to think it was manipulative, but now I'm not so sure. That night, I told Mike everything. He said Ethan was lying to get sympathy and probably wanted attention. He said he's always pulling this victim crap and you baby him too much. I didn't really push back. I was frustrated too. Ethan's been quiet, moody, and hard to connect with lately, and I honestly don't know how much of it is just normal teen behavior or something more. I didn't take his temperature that night or anything because frankly he didn't look sick. He ate dinner, did his homework, and then went straight to his room. He didn't even ask for his phone back, which surprised me because Mike still hadn't given it back from the previous week. The next morning, the school called again. They said Ethan wasn't allowed to return until he had a medical note confirming he was cleared. I asked if this was really necessary and they said yes, that once a student reports ongoing symptoms like that, they're obligated to take precautionary steps. I told them I'd think about it, but honestly, I wasn't planning on rushing to the doctor. I didn't want to waste time or money over what I assumed was him exaggerating, especially since he was acting normal at home again. Later that day, Ethan still wouldn't talk to me. I tried asking if something was bothering him or if he was stressed about school. Nothing. Just a shrug. I even tried asking if Mike was too hard on him again. He just said, "I don't want to talk about it." Then he went back to his room. That night, Mike made a few comments about Ethan pulling another stunt. He said the school was probably feeding him nonsense about mental health or trying to label him with something. Mike thinks all this anxiety and depression stuff is blown out of proportion. When I said maybe I should just take Ethan in for a checkup to shut the school up, Mike told me I was enabling him. I didn't respond. Truth is, I don't know what Ethan thinks of me anymore. We used to be close. After his dad walked out, he clung to me for years. But over time, he got quieter, especially after Mike moved in. There have been other incidents. One time, Ethan stayed out too long after school without telling anyone. When he got home, Mike screamed at him for disrespect and made him write a 5-page essay on responsibility. Ethan didn't fight it, just did it, handed it in, and didn't speak to either of us for 2 days. Another time, Mike took his computer away for 2 weeks because he didn't say thank you after dinner. When I tried to step in, Mike said I was raising a spoiled brat. I backed down. I told myself it was just tough love. I don't know if I missed signs or if I just didn't want to see them. Ethan doesn't cry, doesn't yell, and doesn't fight back. He just shuts down. Now I'm wondering if that's worse. Anyway, yesterday the school called again. This time it was the counselor, Mr. Lee. He said Ethan had spoken briefly with Ms. Thompson in private before I picked him up and mentioned that he sometimes wakes up sweating and confused, like he doesn't know where he is, that he's tired all the time and feels foggy. He even said he sometimes forgets parts of conversations. Mr. Lee asked if there were any issues at home that could be affecting Ethan's health or mental state. I said no. He asked again, more pointedly, any stress, conflicts, or emotional tension. I told him we're a normal household, nothing unusual. But I started thinking, how would Ethan describe this house if someone asked him? Would he say he feels safe, heard, respected? Mike doesn't hit him or anything like that. He's just controlling, strict. Everything has to be done his way. If Ethan forgets to clean his plate, it's a lecture. If he stays in his room too long, Mike accuses him of sulking. If he acts distant, Mike calls him ungrateful. I've heard Ethan cry once about a year ago. It was late. He thought I was asleep. I found him sitting on the bathroom floor with a door cracked open. I asked what was wrong and he wiped his face and said he just had a bad dream. I let it go. Now I wish I hadn't. After the counselor call, I texted Mike and told him we needed to talk. I said the school won't let Ethan back without a doctor's note. Mike immediately got angry and said we should pull him out of that woke school and homeschool him instead. Said they're turning kids into hypochondriacs. I told him that wasn't happening. Ethan needs to be around people, not trapped at home. He accused me of siding with the enemy. I ended the conversation there. I booked an appointment with a clinic for next week. I haven't told Mike yet. I tried talking to Ethan again this morning. Told him I made the appointment. He nodded but didn't say anything. I asked if he was okay with that. He just said, okay. I don't know what's happening to him. Maybe he's really sick. Maybe it's mental. Maybe it's burnout or depression or something else. I don't understand. All I know is that I feel like I've been looking at him but not seeing him for a while now. I'm still not convinced he didn't play up his symptoms to get out of school that day. But I can't deny something's off. Ethan isn't allowed back to school till I get some tests done to ensure he's okay. But I was hoping we would work this out quickly instead. Comments. Comment 1. You seem more concerned with how the school looks at you than whether your kid might be genuinely sick or spiraling. You say you're not convinced he didn't fake being sick. Why would he do that? For fun. To what? Go sit in a cold nurse's office and get interrogated by adults. You never once consider that maybe Ethan doesn't tell you things because he knows you'll minimize them. Look at your own words. If there was something wrong, I'd notice. That's such a self-centered take. What if he did try to tell you before, but you brushed it off like you do everything else? Also, Mike, Jesus, why is this man running your house like he's a damn drill sergeant? And you letting it happen while you clock in and out like he's some stepdad substitute is why your son doesn't trust you anymore. You're not the worst parent, but you are acting like someone who's treating parenting like a side hustle. Wake the hell up. Comment 2. Refusing to get your child checked out after he openly disclosed symptoms like memory loss and exhaustion meets the definition of neglect. The school isn't overstepping. They're following protocol to protect a kid who might be in trouble physically or emotionally. You said they don't know him like I do, but based on this post, I'm not sure that's even true. Kids gravitate towards safe adults. If he felt safer confiding in a teacher than his own parent, then maybe he doesn't feel heard or supported at home. Also, the fact that you jumped straight to he must be lying says a lot about the relationship, even if he were exaggerating, which I doubt. Kids don't fake that level of distress unless something deeper is going on. And often the ones who stay quiet, do their work, and don't complain are the ones we overlook until it's too late. You've been absentee. You've let your boyfriend run the household with fear and now your son is finally speaking up and you're still not listening. Please, before this gets worse, do the right thing and show Ethan that someone in his life actually believes him. Comment 3. Lots of people in this thread are rightfully focusing on Mike and the emotional damage, and I agree with them, but I'm also worried there's something physically wrong with your son, and everyone's too distracted by the household drama to see it clearly. Night sweats and mental fog could be medical autoimmune, thyroid, or early signs of something neurological. And the fact that you've delayed medical care because you assumed he was being manipulative, that's not just bad parenting. That's dangerous. Yes, Mike is a problem. Yes, your son probably feels trapped, but you still need to get that kid a full medical workup ASAP. Don't let your guilt or defensiveness stop you from doing the one thing that actually might help him right now. You need to deal with your boyfriend issue, but you also need to treat your son like he's a person whose body might be shutting down, not just a moody teenager trying to annoy you. Update. So, a lot has happened since my original post, and honestly, I'm more confused now than I was then. I didn't take Ethan to the doctor right away like everyone told me to. I thought the school was overreacting, and Mike said giving in would set a bad precedent. The school still refused to let Ethan back without a medical clearance. But after a few days of back and forth emails, I sent him anyway. They didn't stop him at the door, so I assumed it wasn't as serious as they claimed. For a couple of days, things seemed normal. At least normal for us. Ethan barely spoke to Mike, which irritated him, but that's how their dynamic has always been. Mike took the silence as attitude. I took it as Ethan being dramatic because he was embarrassed about the school incident. He kept dragging around like he was exhausted, but again, I thought it was just moodiness. Then last Friday, everything blew up. Mike and I were out on a date, just a late dinner we'd planned for weeks. It was the first night in a while where we weren't arguing about parenting, the school, or money. Halfway through the meal, I got a call from my neighbor saying Ethan was coughing up blood, and she'd already called 911. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. Mike started swearing under his breath, grabbed the check, and we rushed to the hospital. When we got to the ER, Ethan was pale and trembling. The nurse said he'd vomited blood again in the ambulance. The first thing Mike did before even touching the kid was demand to know why a 14-year-old with zero responsibilities was stressing himself into a damn medical emergency. He kept saying Ethan needed to stop acting like a 40-year-old man with bills. Then he snapped. "What the hell is going on with you? Why can't you act like a normal teenager?" Ethan wouldn't look at either of us. The doctor later told us Ethan had a bleeding peptic ulcer. They suspected long-term stress as a major contributing factor along with poor eating patterns. I didn't even know what to say. I kept thinking, how does a 14-year-old get a stress ulcer? What kind of stress? He stayed overnight for observation. They wanted to monitor blood loss and start medications. After the doctor said he was stabilizing, Mike said there was no point in us sitting around hovering. He suggested we go home, eat, decompress, and come back in the morning. I didn't fight him. I told myself Ethan was safe sleeping and the nurses had everything under control. When we got home, Mike set up this whole candle at dinner to reset the mood and help us calm down. I went along with it because I was overwhelmed and honestly in shock from everything. He kept talking about how Ethan bottles everything up until he explodes and how that's why he lashes out or gets sick. He said Ethan probably didn't tell me anything because he didn't want to ruin our night, then added that maybe this was a wake-up call for Ethan to open up more instead of acting cold. It all sounded twisted in hindsight, but in the moment it made sense to me. The next morning, I apologized to Ethan for not believing him earlier. I even told him Mike only reacted harshly because he cared and wanted him to enjoy his teenage years without carrying the world on his shoulders. Ethan didn't say anything. When I asked if he understood where we were coming from, he said, "It's fine. I get it." But the tone wasn't understanding. It was detached, completely disconnected. You'd think after his diagnosis, things at home would lighten a bit. Everyone has been tiptoeing around him. Mike's been oddly nice trying to joke with him, asking about school, even giving him his phone back without being asked. I've been checking in more, trying to be present, trying to fix the distance. But Ethan won't accept any of it. He avoids Mike. Honestly, he avoids me too. He doesn't talk unless absolutely necessary. And apparently the school doesn't buy this sudden shift either. I found out the investigation is still ongoing. The counselor, Mr. Lee, called me and asked for another meeting. He said Ethan disclosed feeling unsafe at home. He wouldn't give details because of protocol, but he said there were concerning patterns and that the medical episode only made their concerns stronger. Then he dropped the biggest bomb. He said Ethan told them he felt emotionally abused. I was stunned. I asked him where the hell that came from. He didn't answer directly, just repeated that they're required to continue the investigation and that CPS may contact us again. Now I'm angry. Kids lie, exaggerate, and do all kinds of things for attention or sympathy. How am I supposed to know what's real and what's another stunt? And before anyone jumps down my throat, yes, I screwed up not taking him to a doctor earlier. But after getting the ulcer diagnosis, after the hospital, after everyone softened up around him, he still won't engage. He tells the school he's abused. He tells doctors he's stressed and he won't talk to us. I can't figure out if he's scared, resentful, overwhelmed, or manipulating the narrative because he knows the school is on his side. Mike is furious. He thinks Ethan is milking the victim act. Now that authorities are watching, I'm stuck between my partner and my son, trying to figure out what's truth and what's teenage dramatics. Last night, though, was the tipping point. Mike snapped. Ethan was sitting at the table eating and Mike told him he needed to drop the attitude and stop acting traumatized every time someone speaks. Ethan didn't respond. Mike slammed his hand on the counter and yelled, "This isn't a damn orphanage. Stop acting like we beat you." Ethan jerked so hard the spoon flew out of his hand. That's when I realized this wasn't normal. That reaction wasn't a bratty teen act. That was fear. Plain fear. Now I don't know where any of this is heading. The school keeps pressing. Mr. Lee is more involved than I think he should be. CPS may call again. Ethan won't let me near whatever is going on inside him. Mike is getting angrier and I still don't fully understand how we got here. All I know is that nothing I've done has made this better. Everything is spiraling and I don't know where it ends. Comments. Comment 1. You gave more emotional comfort to your boyfriend after the hospital than to your son in the hospital. You want to know where it all went wrong. It's not just when you ignored the symptoms or when you let Mike punish him for attitude. It was when you allowed someone who is not his father who actively dislikes him to stand over his hospital bed and interrogate him like he faked an ulcer to ruin your dinner plans. That is blatant emotional abuse. And you didn't stop it. You didn't tell Mike to shut up. You didn't say enough. You didn't choose your son. Then you rewarded Mike with a nice dinner, trying to reset the vibe while your kid lay in a sterile bed, wondering why the people who were supposed to protect him didn't even stay. And let's talk about your apology. Saying sorry while defending Mike's actions isn't an apology. It's gaslighting. You're still blaming your kid for not communicating after watching him physically break down from stress. CPS is involved for a reason. Mr. Lee isn't too involved. He's the only adult in this story who seems to give a damn about your son without conditions. Comment 2. Your son didn't get a stress ulcer because he holds things in. He got it because he lives in a house where expressing anything gets punished. I don't think you understand what a peptic ulcer in a kid means. 14-year-olds don't get ulcers unless something is seriously deeply wrong in their environment. And no, this isn't normal teen stress. This is chronic fear, chronic silence, chronic pressure. You say Ethan bottles things up. You never ask why. Kids don't bottle things unless they get punished or shamed for speaking. Every example you gave of discipline from Mike wasn't discipline. It was domination. Taking a phone for rolling his eyes, screaming because he didn't say thank you. Accusing a kid of having an attitude just because he's quiet. The ulcer didn't come from nowhere. His nervous system has been in fight or flight for so long that it's showing up physically. And the way both of you reacted to the hospital visit is exactly why he didn't tell you earlier. Your boyfriend yelling at him while he's bleeding, asking why he can't act normal. Then going home for a candle at dinner while he spent the night in the hospital alone. Ethan is afraid of you because you created a home where his feelings are inconvenient interruptions. You ask why he told the school he's abused because from his perspective, he is. Comment 3. Ethan isn't rejecting kindness. He's rejecting the sudden whiplash of people being nice. Only after he almost bled out. What you're seeing isn't defiance. It's distrust. Profound distrust. Think about his timeline. He gets punished harshly for tiny things. He gets ignored when he expresses discomfort. He gets mocked or yelled at for being quiet. He finally opens up at school and his mother calls him a liar. His symptoms escalate. He ends up in the ER coughing blood. His mom and her boyfriend go home to have a romantic dinner. The next morning, they're suddenly gentle, apologetic, and attentive. Of course, he doesn't buy it. You're treating his withdrawal like attitude when it's actually self-pee protection. From his perspective, kindness in your household is unstable, temporary, conditional, and based on whether he's sick enough to inconvenience you. He knows the second he acts normal, Mike will go right back to yelling and power tripping. You're asking where this ends. It ends when you end your relationship with the man who terrifies your son or when CPS removes Ethan because you refuse to. Right now, all Ethan sees is that the safest place to tell the truth is anywhere except home. That should scare you more than anything. Update: I didn't plan for any of this to happen. I thought things would die down once Ethan's diagnosis was out and people saw we were handling things. I genuinely believed the worst had passed, but it hadn't. Not even close. Things started coming apart. After Ethan came home from the hospital, the school sent another formal notice. I thought it was just more red tape, but apparently the incident where I sent him back without medical clearance had triggered something more serious. They'd filed an official concern with the district and CPS, citing not just medical neglect, but what they called a pattern of dismissal and household instability. That was the wording. I brushed it off at first. I told Mike and he went off about how schools today act like they're parenting experts. I agreed. In the moment, it felt like they were punishing me for one mistake and I was still feeling attacked from all sides. Ethan wasn't talking to me. Mike was constantly pissed and I felt like I was being labeled as some negligent monster when I was just trying to survive like everyone else. Then CPS called again. This time they weren't just doing a wellness check. They said they needed to speak to Ethan alone and bring in a child therapist to do what they called a mental health assessment in context. I didn't understand what that meant at first. It sounded more serious than before, but no one was throwing around words like custody or removal. So, I figured we'd just sit through it and move on. But Ethan didn't say what I expected. He didn't stay quiet like he always had before. And once he was in the therapist office away from us, he started talking. I didn't get the full report. Legally, they can't tell me everything, but what I was told shook me more than I want to admit. Ethan had described our home as a place where he never knew when he'd be in trouble. He said he avoided talking because talking made things worse. He said the reason he kept things in was because whenever he let anything out, it turned into a punishment. The therapist told me that Ethan was showing symptoms of chronic emotional stress, that his body had turned it inward, that the ulcer was likely the result of long-term pressure and psychological tension. When she said that, I didn't even have words. I just sat there staring. And then came the part I never expected. CPS told me that Ethan wouldn't be allowed to come home unless Mike left. They made it clear this wasn't optional. They called it a non-court safety plan, but said if I refused to cooperate, they'd escalate to family court. Mike had to move out if Ethan was going to return. I should have said yes. I should have kicked Mike out right there. But I didn't. I was so goddamn tired. I was angry. I felt cornered, and Mikey was already whispering in my ear. You see what he's doing, right? He wants to break us up. He's playing everyone. He made me feel like this was an attack on us, not a protection for Ethan. He said, if you let them do this now, they'll keep coming for us. They'll take over. I don't even know how to explain it. It's like I was in a fog. Like everything that had gone wrong was someone else's fault. The schools, the therapists, even Ethan's. I actually believed for a few days that maybe Ethan wanted to live somewhere else. That maybe this was all because he resented Mike and had finally found a way to push him out. So, I told CPS no. I told them I wasn't removing Mike. That if Ethan needed space, he could stay with his aunt for a while. That we'd talk it through once things calmed down. They didn't argue. They just said, okay. And then my son was out of my house. Weeks passed. We were waiting for the next review. I didn't call Ethan much because every time I did, it was awkward. Stiff. He answered my questions like he was talking to a caseworker, not his mom. Mike said that was proof he didn't care, that he was comfortable where he was and didn't want to come back. I started believing that too. Then something happened that I haven't told anyone until now. Mike and I were alone one night lying in bed when he said completely out of nowhere, you know, I never wanted to raise someone else's kid. I did it for you. I didn't respond at first. He just kept talking. He said Ethan never respected him. That all he wanted was for the kid to man up and stop walking around like some ghost. He said he didn't understand why a boy with a roof over his head, food in his belly, and 2 adults trying to make him successful was always acting like he was under attack. And then he said something that made my stomach twist. If he ends up screwed up, that's on him. I tried. He chose this SHT. That was the first time I saw it clearly. It wasn't just that Mike was strict. He didn't love my son. Not even close. He tolerated him, resented him, blamed him, and I let him. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept remembering things. The time Ethan cried in the bathroom when he thought I couldn't hear. The quiet looks. The way he stopped hugging me years ago. And then the gut punch hit me. I lost him. My little boy. The one who used to curl up next to me during thunderstorms. The one who cried when I scraped my knee once and brought me tissues. I pushed him away over and over until he stopped coming to me at all. I thought I was being fair. I thought I was giving discipline or something he needed. But I see now that what I was really doing was choosing comfort, choosing love that cost nothing over the love that required real work. I still love Mike and I hate that I do. I hate that I still miss him when he's not home. That I still want to believe we're building something. But I don't trust him anymore. Not after what he said. Not after what he didn't say when Ethan was sick. Not after everything. CPS is reviewing the case again next month. I don't know what they'll decide. Ethan hasn't said if he wants to come home. I called him 2 nights ago and told him I was sorry. Really sorry. He said, I know. That's it. That's all he said. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fix what I broke. I don't know if Ethan will ever trust me again, but I finally see it for what it is. Not a phase, not a rebellion, not some teenage tantrum. He was drowning and I stood on the shore holding hands with the person who pushed him in. Comments. Comment 1. What hit me hardest was the part where you say you still love Mike and hate that you do. That line's real. It's raw. But it also tells me everything. You didn't just miss the signs. You buried them. You clung to the illusion that Mike was trying. That the problem was Ethan's silence. Because the alternative, that you loved someone who could sit next to a child's hospital bed and guilt trip him for ruining a date, was too much to face. So you convinced yourself Ethan was broken, difficult, and dramatic. Because that let you keep your life intact. But love that asked you to sacrifice your child. That's not love. You weren't just manipulated. You were willing. And now you've lost your son's trust, maybe permanently. The real work starts now. Not with Ethan, but with yourself. Figure out why you needed Mike more than you needed to protect your kid. Comment 2. Ethan didn't leave the house the night CPS stepped in. He left long before that. When you let Mike punish him for being quiet. When you blamed his shutdowns on attitude. When you sat at a dinner table post-ulcer and told him your boyfriend's cruelty came from love. You say you didn't realize, but deep down I think you knew. You saw the flinches. You heard the crying behind the door. You watched him stop coming to you. And instead of wondering why, you let Mike write the narrative that Ethan was manipulative, dramatic, and ungrateful. And you believed him because that was easier than looking at your own absence. The reason your son doesn't talk isn't because he's cold. It's because he learned the safest version of himself was the silent one. And now the damage is done. Second story. My entitled friend took my dress and altered it behind my back. So, I demanded $90 from her and she is refusing. I, 24F, have a friend, 23F, who came to me a month ago asking to borrow a blue bridesmaid dress. I was a bridesmaid for a wedding with a blue theme not too long ago. So I lent her the dress I used. She was a really good friend, so I didn't really mind helping her out. After I handed her the dress, she texted me thanking me, and I have not really heard from her since. Anyway, the wedding happened and a week later, she came to return the dress she borrowed. When she came over, I asked her how the wedding went and whether or not the dress was comfortable. That's when she admitted that she had it altered to fit her better since she was smaller than me and that she liked it more snug. I was shocked, gagged, confused. I don't even know how to feel about it. She didn't even ask my permission to have it altered. Also, isn't it common etiquette to return borrowed things in the same condition you received them? Also, she could have just asked. Anyway, we had a conversation about how I didn't really appreciate what she did. She apologized and flat out said I can still have it readjusted if I wanted to wear it again and that she was willing to pay for it. I told her I wasn't sure it would work since she basically shrunk my dress. Then, she suggested I sell the dress, so I asked her to buy it since she took it upon herself to have it altered without my permission. She asked how much and when I told her it was $90, she straight up told me it was too much, that she wasn't willing to pay that much for a dress that has been used. I feel like it is a reasonable price as I bought it for almost $120. Also, it is a cute dress that I intend on wearing again. Ow for doing what I did. Is my reaction valid? P.S. Hoping there are dress experts/dressmakers here. Is there a possibility to restore the dress to its original size? The dress is made of satin and she made it snug around the bust and waist area. Much thanks for the comments and responses. Comments. Comment 1. Nor my grandma used to say borrowed is related to gifted and I learned the hard way that it's true. I honestly can't believe the audacity of altering the dress. A true friend would have told you. Hey OP, thank you, but it's a little big for me. Instead of basically making sure you'll never be able to wear it again. If you have the receipt or anything that shows the price, I would send it to her. Demand at least the $90 you told her and stop considering her a friend. Comment 2. The K. Jones owns to tell her she doesn't want to pay $90 for a used dress. She's the one that used it and then ruined it for the OP. OMG. Comment 3. She needed to return it as she borrowed it or replace it. No. Comment 4. Seamstress here. Being able to restore the dress to your size will depend on how the dress was altered to begin with. If the tailor was able to preserve the extra fabric, then it may just be a question of redoing the seams. But if the excess was trimmed away after altering common, then there's not much hope without some creative solutions like inset panels or shortening the skirt and using the fabric from that. If your friend is still talking to you, ask where she took the dress and take it to the same person. Otherwise, a bridal store with an on-site tailor may be your best bet. Ironically, the cost to restore the dress will probably be around $90. Update. Hi, thank you for the comments and messages. Every one of them has been extremely kind and helpful. First of all, I want to address the people saying the original post was made to promote the dress. I literally just wanted to know if there was any chance it could be realtored because my friend was only willing to pay for realtoration. Promoting the dress would benefit me in no way whatsoever. Now, on that matter, I have spoken to dressmakers, tailor, and dress experts, and they all said that the dress cannot be restored to its original size and form since it is made of satin. I even went to the actual shop where my friend had it altered, but they also said there was nothing they could do. Anyway, my former friend still refused to pay me and is still being a sty person. Plus, she had the nerve to ask me to just give it to her or sell it to her at a lower price. And it got me wondering if that was her motive all along. She probably knew the dress cannot be realtored. I don't know. After all that, I've decided to just cut her off and take the high road. I honestly don't have the time or energy to chase her down for $90. I know I can buy another cute dress with a $90, but I'd pay triple that to never ever speak to her or see her again. I ended up giving the dress to my roommate who isn't a sty friend. And thankfully, it fits her perfectly with some minor adjustments on the sides, maybe. So, at least the dress didn't completely go to waste. Sorry if this isn't the dramatic update some of you wanted. I know a lot of you were hoping I'd take her to small claims court, but I am choosing peace. If anything happens, I'll update, but for my sake, I hope that she stays TF away from me. Comments. Comment 1. Oh, please be petty and take a pic with your friend wearing the dress and post it so your ex-friend can see it. Comment 2. Sometimes pettiness is deserved. This is the time. Comment 3. Still, Nora, any good seamstress would have told the customer that once they altered a dress made out of this fabric, it could not be altered back to its original size. Your ex-friend simply ignored that warning. Comment 4. Well, it does sound like it was her ulterior motive all along. I'm glad you've cut her out of your life. She was definitely no real friend. Sorry you lost your dress though. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your